So in this segment, we're going to be discussing more about Labour and the two-child cap, to be honest, and all the people who said they're going to pressure Labour to make better policy decisions. I hope you fight for this one. I really do. I hope you fight to get rid of the two-child cap, because currently, as it stands, it's like this.
Am I right in saying you won't? I better check the pen is right. Will you scrap the two-child?
We won't, Nick. It's been a difficult decision, this.
So it's been a difficult decision not to alleviate one of the main causes of child poverty. This from Jonathan Ashworth.
Lead to rising child poverty in the next year. Hundreds of thousands more poor families losing £4,000 a year because of this two-child cap if they got more than 2 kids. You called the policy vicious. You said it was a heinous policy.
Which it is. He's right, by the way. That's what these policies are.
I mean, what's Labour for? If it's not for tackling child poverty, why is this not in the manifesto?
Well, of course, my views on that policy are well known and long-standing. You've just quoted back at me how I've described it in colourful language in the past. But equally, what will do nothing to help alleviate child poverty in this country is for politicians to make unfunded, unaffordable spending commitments.
So find the money then. Find the money. Raise capital gains tax in line with income tax. That's a start. Start doing things like raising the top tax rate from 45 back to the old 50% rate. Maybe introduce some more tax bands. Start finding the money for this stuff, because why should any child live in poverty? A child that wasn't, never decided to be born has to live poorer because of the government's decision.
Poverty Action Group says that
for anyone to say stop having kids and blah blah blah, right? First of all, the kid doesn't decide to be born, right? Secondly, people's circumstances change. Thirdly, the country's circumstances change. We saw that very recently with COVID, the Liz Truss budget and things like that.
Two-child limit, more than any other policy, has driven child poverty to record levels. These people who are affected can't wait for growth, which you have your fingers crossed to achieve.
Which is true. They don't have no real plans for growth. And so, the idea that they're going to spend, if they do grow the economy, they're going to spend the money on getting rid of the two-child cap is also nonsense. They've ruled that out. They're going to spend it on nuclear deterrence.
Angela Rayner says it is obscene and inhumane. And Keir Starmer, back in 2020, said he would scrap it.
Politics.
But the IFS say that your child poverty strategy is going to mean child poverty goes up next year and the year after.
And that will be under a Labour government. So for anyone who argues, Labour are the party of helping the vulnerable in society, they're not doing a very good job of it. Or at least they're saying they're not saying they're going to do a very good job of it, are they?
Boss, you're not scrapping this policy. Isn't politics about choices?
It is about choices. And again, they're choosing not to raise taxes.
In the manifesto, you are spending billions of pounds in a costed way with tax rises. You've just decided not to spend. It's not a priority to tackle the vicious, heinous thing. It just feels as though child poverty just didn't quite make the cut compared to childcare or dentistry or waiting times. Is that really...
Again, they found the money for, breakfast clubs and things like that, but not the money for child poverty.
Really the right choice?
Two-child cap even.
Well, of course, the IFS is making an assessment based on the interaction of the tax and benefit system. They're not looking at the bigger picture of how we're going to grow the economy when we've had...
I mean, you've not really explained properly how you're going to grow the economy. This trust me bro strategy, this we're going to smoke the G7 pack and get the highest growth. I'm just not seeing it based on what you guys are saying, especially when you guys say dumb stuff as well, like this.
A Green Party manifesto where it sets out costings, and I think that under that it's something like £82 billion worth of additional debt.
It's not far off what Jeremy Corbyn's Labour manifesto would have cost in 2019.
Less than Austria and France.
In that Liz Truss mini budget that crashed the economy, sent people's mortgages spiralling, I think there was something like 40 billion of additional debt. So, there's these proposals, over 80 billion additional debt would just absolutely crash. I mean,
it depends what you do with the money to grow the economy. We saw that they spent 38 billion on pest and trace. Did that crash the economy? No. If you go to the market, if that's your strategy to raise money is by going to the bond markets, you can show them where you're going to spend the money and how that's going to impact the economy. And that's where you work with the OBR. That's the whole point. The reason why the Liz Truss budget failed is because you went to the market and said, we're going to borrow this money. The market said, how are we going to get return on investment? And Liz Truss said, trust me, bro, trickle down economics. And she stopped the OBR from doing the reports. That's what happened. You know, Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure to scrap the two-child benefit cap, as research shows 270,000 more children will be impacted over the next year. So child poverty going up if a new Labour government don't take action on it. And you know, this is what Starmer was asked about when it comes to growth and the two-child cap.
Would you agree with me that there is nothing more important in the country than the well-being of children? Yes or no?
Yes.
Would you agree that the two-child benefit limit has pushed more children into poverty? Yes or no?
It's caused real problems. I would agree with that.
So why won't you scrap it?
Because
this is the most important thing, you've just agreed with me, in the country, and you won't.
This is good interviewing skills. This is where you get the agreement on an issue and then you use that to trap them into further questioning. It's what, you know, those guys would call forensic.
Won't scrap a policy that is pushing children into poverty.
Look, it is the most important thing. And there are things, we will have a child poverty strategy. We'll put it in place straight away.
If your child poverty strategy doesn't include tackling one of the policies that has the most impact on child poverty, you're not going to do your job properly. Having a strategy is one thing, but if you're not going to implement the main policy, it doesn't mean anything. If your strategy to beat the other football team is just to score more goals, you're not going to get very far in life.
To deal with the underlying causes of child poverty. So that's the bills that people are paying, overcrowded accommodation. But what I'm not going to do is put something in the manifesto which, on the current state of the economy, I don't think...
Again, it's not going to cost a lot. It's way cheaper than all of these nuclear submarines he's proposing to build. And in reality, it is about choices.
To recognise that you are making a choice. You could fully fund and fully cost lifting the two-child benefit cap, and you are making the choice not to do that. That's right, isn't it?
Well, these are trade-offs. We've made the commitment not to increase taxes because the tax burden is already too high on people.
You know, the tax burden on lower earners and middle earners, yeah, it's too high. On higher earners, it's not. It's really not. On businesses, it's not. On the people who make money off stocks and shares, it's not. And when we look at Labour's actual plans, they're set to land billions in new investment from banks and international firms. And the way they're going to do this is similar to PFI, public-private partnerships in this case, but PFI, private-funded initiatives, expanded under Blair and Brown, which were really awful stuff. You know, piecing together Labour's plan to pay for fixing the country. Some tax rises are possible, but they hope not sweeping. More borrowing to invest, more tough spending calls, and hopes for private finance. No, they joked about getting BlackRock to rebuild Britain. And so this idea of PFI 2.0. And so when we look at the actual impact of PFI, right, you had Carillion, which made a lot of money from PFI, went bankrupt ultimately and caused huge problems. It was a massive story a couple of years ago. But more importantly, when you look at this, schools are spending tens of thousands of pounds more a year to meet the rising cost of contracts with private firms. Those private finance initiatives, schools are locked into 25 to 30-year contracts. So some of these contracts are going to last longer than I've been alive. Think about that. One school said it was spending thousands of pounds a year to keep its plain grass below 2.5 centimetres as the rigid contract demands. And so they have to pay this company to come by and cut the grass every time it reaches 2.5 centimetres. Mansfield Primary in Spec, Liverpool, opened after the local authority entered a PFI agreement to new school buildings. Head teacher David Potter says nearly 20% of the school's entire budget is now spent on meeting the terms of the PFI contract, squeezing what he can spend on classroom staff. So what you have essentially is the private sector allowing the schools to be built and then charging massive contracts and causing huge issues within these schools. You know, some of these schools are in massive states of disrepair because of the way these contracts are done. And so Labour's plan is to basically allow these companies to make even more money, because what they don't want to do is make it look like borrowing's going up. So this is how they're going to keep the debt to GDP ratio down. They're going to let the private sector wreak havoc on these schools. And what will happen is borrowing will naturally have to come up because schools will require more funding because they're going to have to pay for these contracts. It literally makes no sense. And this whole project was a massive cash grab. You know, maintaining the grounds costs around £30,000 a year. That's the cost of a teacher. The contract does not allow the school's head teacher to shop around for better prices from other suppliers, something Mr. Potter finds incredibly frustrating as he watches the price rise. And all they have to do is they can set the price that they want. the PFI company can charge how much they want. The PFI company said the contract should be renegotiated to allow the grass to grow higher, but Liverpool City Council said the legal costs would outweigh the benefits, so they would have to go to court in order to get this stuff overturned. It's ridiculous. This whole article is just full of other stories where you get the most crazy examples of things. It's just, I recommend you reading it. The Bloomberg one will be in the comments, in the links below as well. But you know what they're doing is they're going to let the private sector run absolute havoc when it comes to infrastructure like schools and hospitals, right? And when it comes to actually funding really important things, which, you know, things that would alleviate child poverty, we ain't got the money for that, bro. What do you think this is, socialism? Honestly, just endless frustration. And I hope the ones that said they're going to put pressure on Labour, you better be there, because I guarantee you I'm going to be there. And if you're not talking about this, I will call you on it. I will call you on it, and I will drag your name. I do not care, because there are not many more important issues than this. So if we kick out the Tories and the Labour continue with Tory policies, I'm going to make sure the audience know about it. So you better do the same. You better have a strategy, because you're telling the people to give Labour a blank check here in terms of a supermajority. So you best do your damnedest. You best do your damnedest to make sure Labour implements some good policies. And there are not many better policies than getting rid of the 2-child cap. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.